In this video, we delve into 4 major storylines that captivated fans worldwide: Lewis Hamilton's ongoing adaptation to Ferrari, McLaren's controversial team orders, Oliver Bearman's looming FIA race ban, and the impending review of Carlos Sainz's penalty. Let's break it down. According to PlanetF1.com, Lewis Hamilton didn't just drive a race at Monza, he made a statement. A massive, prancing horse-sized statement. For years, we've wondered what it would look like for Lewis Hamilton, the most successful driver of the modern era, to don the red of Ferrari and race at their hallowed home circuit, Monza. This past weekend, we got our answer, and it was everything the Tifosi dreamed of and more. The article describes his performance as monumental. He qualified on the front row, splitting the dominant McLarens, and then delivered a podium finish, standing there on the iconic rostrum, showered in Ferrari red and surrounded by a sea of adoring Italian fans. But this was more than just a good result. This was a symbolic coronation. Hamilton stated, and I quote, "To be on the podium at Monza, in red, it's a moment I will cherish forever." The energy from the Tifosi is like nothing I've ever experienced. Let's break down why this is such a huge statement. First, there's the psychological impact. For the last decade at Mercedes, Monza has often been a struggle. The Silver Arrows have frequently been on the back foot here, fighting for podiums rather than victories. To jump into a car that, let's be honest, is still not the outright fastest on the grid, that McLaren is a rocket ship, and put it on the front row and on the podium sends a message to the entire grid. Lewis Hamilton is back, and he is fully integrated into the Ferrari ethos. Second, it's a statement to Charles Leclerc. While Leclerc had a messy qualifying and a recovery drive, Hamilton was the undisputed lead Ferrari. He's establishing a clear #1 status within the team, a narrative that was far from certain when this move was announced. He's using his vast experience to extract every ounce of performance from the car and the team. But perhaps the most important statement is to himself. There's been a lot of talk, some of it quiet and skeptical, about whether the 40-year-old Hamilton still has the fire, the raw pace, to compete at the very highest level. His final years at Mercedes were fraught with mechanical struggles and strategic missteps. This drive at one of the most physically and mentally demanding tracks on the calendar silences all of that doubt. He was inch-perfect, relentless, and clinically fast. The article quotes a team insider saying the atmosphere was electric and that Hamilton's integration into the team is complete. He's no longer a Mercedes driver in red. He is a Ferrari driver. He speaks the language, he understands the passion, and he's now delivering the results. This performance is a statement of intent for the remainder of 2025 and a huge warning shot for 2026. If Ferrari can provide him with a championship-winning car, Lewis Hamilton has just proven beyond any shadow of a doubt that he is more than capable of driving it to the title. He has won over the most passionate fans in the sport, and in doing so, has cemented his legacy not just as a great driver, but as a Ferrari legend in the making. This wasn't just a podium, it was a declaration that the dream is very, very alive. But while Hamilton was uniting a nation in red, another top team was causing a civil war, not amongst its drivers, but amongst F1 royalty. Our second story comes from the McLaren garage, and it's a tale of 2 F1 titans with diametrically opposed viewpoints. According to PlanetF1.com, Martin Brundle and Bernie Ecclestone are fundamentally divided over McLaren's use of team orders at Monza, and their debate represents a wider philosophical split in the sport. Here's what happened. Lando Norris was leading the race with his teammate Oscar Piastri close behind and a charging Lewis Hamilton in the Ferrari closing in. McLaren, sensing a threat from Hamilton, issued a team order to Piastri to hold position and not challenge Norris, securing a guaranteed 1-2 finish for the team. Now, to most modern fans and analysts, this is standard procedure. You protect the lead, you secure the maximum points for the Constructors' Championship, and you avoid any risk of your 2 drivers taking each other out. Martin Brundle, from his commentary box, defended the decision vehemently. He argued that in the modern era, with the financial and sporting stakes so high, team orders are not just necessary, they are essential. He called it a textbook professional decision from a team operating at the highest level. For Brundle, it's about the team first, the collective good over individual glory. Enter Bernie Ecclestone, the former F1 Supremo, never one to mince his words, slammed the decision. His perspective is from a bygone era, the era of let them race. Bernie believes that by issuing team orders so early, McLaren robbed the fans of a fantastic battle. He thinks that the spectacle, the raw, unfiltered competition between two teammates, is what Formula One is all about. He reportedly said that it takes the soul out of the sport and turns drivers into robots following orders. For Ecclestone, it was a cowardly move that prioritized points over passion. This isn't just a petty argument, it's a fascinating clash of ideologies. Brundle represents the modern, hyper-efficient corporate world of F1, where every point is worth millions of dollars and every position in the Constructors' Championship impacts development and resources for next year. It's a business. Ecclestone represents the romantic, albeit perhaps outdated, ideal of gladiatorial combat, the era where teammates like Senna and Prost were allowed to tear each other apart, for better or worse. His viewpoint is purely about the show, the entertainment product. So, who is right? Well, they both are, from their respective viewpoints. Brundle is pragmatically correct. McLaren's job is to win championships, and that 1-2 finish gave them a huge haul of points over rivals like Red Bull and Ferrari. From a pure racing strategy standpoint, it was the right call, but Ecclestone is emotionally correct. Imagine the spectacle. The two fastest cars on the track, wheel to wheel through the curvas, Grande fighting for the lead of the Italian Grand Prix. It would have been an instant classic moment. By shutting it down, McLaren did, in a way, sanitize the race. The article highlights this divide, showing that there is no easy answer. It's the eternal tension in Formula One between sport and business, between pure racing and calculated strategy. The Brundle-Ecclestone split is a microcosm of a debate that will rage on for as long as teams have two cars. McLaren made the logical decision, but in doing so, they gave two of the sport's most influential figures the ammunition for a debate that defines the very nature of Formula One in 2025. While the champions debated team strategy, a young driver found himself on the receiving end of a decision that many are calling downright unfair. Our third story is one that has sparked outrage up and down the paddock and among fans. PlanetF1.com reports that Haas driver Oliver Bearman was hit with a post-race time penalty by the FIA for an incident deemed an unsafe rejoin after a spin, a punishment that has been widely criticized as excessively harsh and missing any common sense. Let's set the scene. Bearman, the young British rookie who has had flashes of brilliance this season, was having a tough race. In the mid-phase of the Grand Prix, he lost control of his Haas through the second Lesmo corner, a high-speed right-hander. The car snapped away from him, spinning into the gravel trap. Now, here's the crucial part. The car was beached. The rear wheels were dug into the gravel, and for a moment, it looked like his race was over. But through a combination of clutch modulation and sheer determination, he managed to rock the car free and get it back onto the tarmac. In his haste to get going and not lose more time, he pulled back onto the racing line as a car was approaching, forcing that driver to take evasive action. This is the unsafe rejoin the FIA penalized. Now, on a purely technical level, by the absolute letter of the law, the stewards were correct. A driver must rejoin the track in a safe manner and can only do so when it is safe to do so. Bearman, desperate to save his race, did not do that. The penalty, a 5-second time drop, is the standard sanction for such an incident. So why the uproar? Because context matters. Firstly, the car was beached. He wasn't rejoining from a runoff area. He was essentially recovering from what looked like a certain retirement. His ability to get the car going again was a minor miracle in itself. Secondly, and most importantly, he was in the gravel trap on the outside of a high-speed corner. His visibility of oncoming traffic would have been extremely limited. He was looking down, focused on getting the car moving, and his only option was to gun it and try to get going. The alternative was to sit there, stranded, and wait for the marshals, which would have meant instant retirement. Every racing driver on the grid is taught from karting to never give up. His instinct to try and save the race is exactly what we celebrate in drivers. The article quotes several unnamed team principals and drivers who called the penalty ridiculous and lacking any feel for the situation. They argue that the stewards should have used discretion. This wasn't a blatant, dangerous move on a straight. It was a driver in a compromised, stuck position doing everything he could to keep going. A warning would have sufficed. A please be more careful note. But to slap a penalty on a rookie for managing to escape the gravel is being seen as a gross overreach. This incident highlights a growing concern about the consistency and application of penalties in Formula One. It feels like we're seeing a zero-tolerance policy applied without nuance. For a young driver like Bearman who needs confidence and isn't fighting for points in that moment, a penalty like this is a brutal and demoralizing blow. It teaches him not to be determined, not to fight against the odds. The FIA's role is to ensure safety, of course, but it also has a duty to foster racing. In this case, according to many in the sport, they failed miserably, prioritizing a black-and-white rule over the vibrant, unpredictable spirit of competition. And if you thought the Bearman penalty was controversial, wait until you hear about the legal challenge that could rewrite the results of the last race and have huge implications for the future. Our fourth and final story is a deep dive into the complex world of F1 regulations and legal appeals. PlanetF1.com confirms that the FIA has set a hearing date of September 12th for Williams' formal right of review petition concerning the incident between Carlos Sainz and Alex Albon at the previous race in Zandvoort. This is F1 at its most procedural and potentially explosive. To understand this, we need to go back. In the Dutch Grand Prix, Carlos Sainz in his Audi-backed Sauber made contact with Alex Albon's Williams while battling for position. The contact sent Albon spinning into the barrier and out of the race. The race stewards at the time investigated the incident and deemed it a racing incident. No further action. Sainz continued and scored points. Williams and Albon were furious. They believed Sainz was predominantly to blame for the collision. But here's the catch. Under the FIA's International Sporting Code, once a steward's decision is made, it is final. You can't just appeal because you don't like the outcome. However, there is one loophole: the right of review. A team can request a review of a decision if they can present significant and relevant new evidence that was unavailable to the stewards at the time of the original hearing. Williams has done exactly that. They have presumably collated new data. This could be advanced telemetry, new camera angles from onboard cameras that were not initially available, or even sophisticated simulation data that they believe proves Sainz was at fault. The FIA has accepted that this evidence is potentially significant and relevant enough to warrant a hearing, hence the date being set for September 12th. On that date, representatives from Williams, Sauber, and likely the drivers involved will present their cases to a reconvened panel of stewards. The implications are massive. If Williams is successful and the stewards overturn their original decision, they could hit Sainz with a time penalty for the Zandvoort race. This would demote him in the results, which would then promote every driver behind him by one place. Crucially, Alex Albon, who was classified as a DNF, did not finish, could be reclassified ahead of Sainz, meaning he would inherit a point or more. In the ultra-tight midfield battle, where every point is worth tens of millions of dollars in prize money, this is a huge deal. But it's bigger than just points. This is about precedent. A successful right of review is exceptionally rare. If Williams pulls this off, it opens the door for other teams to challenge steward decisions after the fact with new data, potentially turning the sport into a legalistic nightmare after every race. It's a high-stakes gamble for Williams. If they fail, they've wasted resources and potentially irked the FIA. But if they succeed, they could be rewarded with crucial championship points and set a new, powerful precedent for challenging officiating in Formula One. All eyes will be on that hearing on September 12th, as it's not just about one incident, it's about the very nature of justice and review in the pinnacle of motorsport. Now, for a story that connects the world of four wheels to the world of two. What if Hamilton's next move isn't in F1 at all? And what if his greatest rival is planning to join him? This story, reported by Motorsport.com, is perhaps the most surprising of the weekend. It suggests that the fiercest rivalry in modern F1 might be preparing to jump ship and take on an entirely new challenge. Together. The headline says it all. How Verstappen and Hamilton are racing to enter MGPTO. Now, let's be clear, this isn't about them becoming riders. At 38 and 28 respectively, that ship has sailed. The physical demands and skill required to compete at the pinnacle of motorcycle racing are immense and require a lifetime of dedication. So what's this about? It's about team ownership. The report details how both drivers are independently exploring avenues to enter MotoGP as team principals and investors, following a similar path to other F1 figures like Valentino Rossi with VR46. For Lewis Hamilton, the connection is more direct. He is a known admirer of the sport and a close friend of the legendary Valentino Rossi. The article suggests that Hamilton has been in discussions with Rossi's VR46 racing team about a potential investment and partnership. Imagine VR46 Hamilton Racing. It has a ring to it. For Hamilton, it's a way to channel his passion for motorsport, build his brand beyond F1, and invest in a sport he loves, all while aligning himself with one of its most iconic brands. On the other side of the garage, Max Verstappen is apparently pursuing a similar goal, but through a different route. His project is linked to his manager, Raymond Vermeulen, and is tentatively named GT Course. The ambition is the same, to secure a grid slot in the MotoGP championship. Verstappen, a sim racing addict and a man who lives and breathes competition, sees team ownership as the next logical step in his career, a way to stay deeply involved in top-level racing long after he hangs up his F1 helmet. This is a race off the track. They are racing to enter MGPTO. Why? Because grid slots are limited. The series is growing in popularity and value, and getting in now, before costs potentially skyrocket even further, is a shrewd business move. It's also a passion project. Both men are adrenaline junkies. Hamilton with his love of MotoGP, and Verstappen with his sim racing and real-world GT3 exploits. The implications are huge. It would bring unprecedented mainstream global attention to MotoGP, dragging a huge portion of the F1 fanbase with them. It would create a fascinating new dynamic, Hamilton versus Verstappen Part 2, but this time fought from the pit wall. Who could build the better team? Who could attract the best riders? Who would win first? This isn't a done deal. The article stresses these are active explorations, not signed contracts. But the mere fact that it's being seriously pursued by the two biggest names in F1 is a testament to the growing allure of MotoGP and the entrepreneurial spirit of the modern driver. They're not just athletes, they're moguls in the making.